Hey, how you doing?
Jon, the crowd has gotten much more enthusiastic about my presence here. It's quite something. It's quite something. Welcome. It is so great to have you.
It's good to be home. It's good to be back, you know. It's great. Thank y'all for coming.
So we are going to start with an announcement. The man next to me was just nominated earlier today for a Grammy for Best American Roots Performance.
Yes.
It was just announced today.
Yes.
And so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes.
That's great. You're excited about that?
Oh, my goodness. It's exciting to be recognized at such a high level amongst my peers. You know, there's so many people who I've worked with and collaborated with, and we're all celebrating. I'm texting everybody just like, you know, hey, man, I'm going to see you. What you going to wear on the carpet? So the conversation has been more about sartorial splendor than anything else. But
yeah, that's great.
I'm looking forward to just celebrating, you know.
That's great. What is this that you have in your hand here?
This is what I like to call a harmonica board. There's many names, melodica, harmonichord, but it's like a harmonica and a keyboard put together.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know why I am even here.
No, man.
So we do have something in common. It's not musical ability, but my father was a bass player. Your father was a bass player.
Yes,
and
yes.
we were talking earlier about how when my father would listen to music, he heard that bass always, and he would...
The groove.
Yeah, the groove. Is that, how do you listen to music? Talk a little bit about how you listen.
So there's different ways of listening to music for me. There's the surface level of listening to it, which is the melody and the rhythm and harmony. Those are the basics of music. And I've studied that backwards, forwards, inside out, and I still study it to this day. So every time I hear something, I can't turn that part of my brain off. Even if I'm in the airport, like I was in the airport, I constantly use Shazam. It's talking about technology, just to discover music that I'm not familiar with and figure out how it's put together, you know, read the liner notes or try to even find an article online of how they constructed the music. So that part of my brain is always working. But then I also like to listen to music from the perspective of what experience did this come from? What was the environment that gave these people the inspiration to create this music? And that's really interesting to me because that's where all music comes from. Before it was commodified, before it was something that you buy tickets to or you sell merch based on, it was something that was a part of the fabric of everyday life.
Yeah.
You know, there was music to dance to, but there's also, you know, music to sleep to, music to eat to, music when someone's born, music when someone dies. In New Orleans, I really love how our culture some way has maintained that as the fabric of the community, even to this day. So I'm always listening to music from that place as well, because coming up in an environment where music was just in the air, you know, I'm always listening to the music to figure out how does this connect to the performer's life? What is it that they were going through when this happened?
Yeah, and there's a piano over there. I have a feeling it may be there for a reason. But you have this instrument in your hand. How many instruments do you play?
Piano is my main instrument. I picked up the bass being around the house. Started on percussion, drums, saxophone. I play a few.
You dabble in a few. Yeah, that's not bad. So you grew up right here. How far from where we sit?
So here's my beef. Kenner, Louisiana is where I was born, and that's where the airport is, but it's New Orleans International Airport, but it's really Kenner. Kenner is a small suburb. It's like 10 minutes outside of the city. I grew up there, and in between there and New Orleans, going to school, going into the New Orleans Center for the Creative Arts and St. Aug, Marching 100. Wow. And yeah, it's like that. But I I really just was always into music, but I didn't really think it would be a profession that I would pursue full time until I was 16 to 17, and I moved to New York.
Yeah, you went to a school that we may have heard of there in New York.
Yeah, so I went to New York mainly to just get into the scene of all of the different records that I was listening to. It seemed like they were either made in LA or New York. So I wanted to get to New York City, and one way of doing that is studying. So I applied to go to the Juilliard School, and I went to the Juilliard School, put my band together, and just went out, sought a lot of people out. And you know, that was really the beginning for me.
So is your music, if we studied it, a mixture of New Orleans and New York? Is that you?
Those experiences, the music, I'll draw from anything, or rather I'll steal from anything, really. I love all types of music. I constantly make playlists and curate sounds and experiment with different sound combinations, but really my experiences have been this city and New York combined, because moving to New York at 17, I've kind of developed a lot of my artistry in the prime years as an artist, you know, from like 17 to 25, 26, you're really finding your voice, and New York really influenced that. You know, we used to do all kinds of stuff. I remember when I graduated from Juilliard the second time, I wanted to figure out a way to take the music that we were doing in like these concert halls and jazz clubs and things like that, and take it to the people.
Yeah.
So we would play concerts, full concerts on the moving subway train.
Wow.
We take the whole band with the tuba and the tambourine, and I couldn't take the piano, so I'd take this, and we would play 30 minutes in the train. And that experience is something that developed just being in New York and riding the train and just feeling the energy of the city and feeling like my music could fit into that, plugging it in like an audio Lego, you know?
Yeah.
And then after you know, that developed, we started to march from the venue. After our shows, for the encores, we would take the audience maybe a mile or two up the street. And we started calling these things love riots. But anyway, that's just one example of me living in New York and it influencing my creativity and my artistic voice in a very direct way.
We won't be doing a love riot here, will we? I didn't bring my coat.
I mean,
Okay. I'm not going to stop it. I've never met you before, but feel like I know you because I see you every night, and you must get that a lot.
Oh,
you know, you're there on the late show, night after night. How has that affected your musical style? You have musicians coming on every night. Has it cramped your style? You're sort of there. You have this commitment every day to be on a show. How are you different because of that late show experience?
oh wow, yeah. The beginning was a transition for sure, because I graduated in 2011 and we started doing the late show. Or we started to build up to doing the late show in 2014. And this was when I was about 25 or 26. So I'd never really had a job. I was touring before that, but never where I had to be. We do 202 shows a year.
Wow.
And we write the show the morning of the show. And we tape it at 5 o'clock. So for me, that was brand new. Amongst another set of responsibilities as the music director. Also being a cast member with Steven and really, you know, he's one of the greatest improvisers in the world. Just being on stage with him and watching his process and trying to work in his process, all of this stuff took us maybe a year to figure out. But now it's interesting because the collaborations that we do are so vast, and it really teaches me about the things that I developed with the band over the years. For instance, you know, we were fortunate enough to collaborate with Mac Miller a few times before he passed. His last television performance was with us on the show.
Wow.
And we put arrangements together with him. We put arrangements together with Yo-Yo Ma, Isaac Perlman, just from Mac Miller and Anderson .Paak to Yo-Yo Ma and everything in between, Willie Nelson. And they all come to us with an idea. But the thing that I learned was they're listening to me and saying, well, how do you do that? How can you put that in my song? Can you try? So I've figured out the things that are special about our band and what we do. And we've just refined those, because doing 202 shows a year, this is the 4th year, we're the tightest that we've ever been. And all these things like the Love Right concept, my concept of social music, and the way that I see music has really been solidified, and all the artists that I collaborate with really see that. So we kind of learn from each other. It's been a real good incubation for the band, and also a good lesson in show business.
Now, you wrote for the New York Times last year about Fats Domino, what he had just passed and what he meant for you, and talk a little bit about that. What is there a song of his that's always in your head? What did he mean to you?
Wow, that's a lot. There's a lot there, because you'd have to go back into the history of what we call rock and roll. And the idea that rock and roll is now predominantly looked at as one thing, but it started out as something that was created by arguably 2 black guys from the South, Chuck Berry and Fats Domino, created rock and roll, and aren't really recognized in that same way. Just what they had to come through, what they had to overcome, and the level of genius that they were, is something that's admirable to me. There's a lot of grace in that. A lot of grace in being able to face that kind of duress and oppression with dignity. And then to allow the legacy to move forward by getting out of the way of that and letting petty things lay and move forward, so that a guy like me can come about and, last year do a tribute to them on the Grammys and have the platform that I have, playing the music that I play, carrying the torch that I carry, to have the platform that I have, means that so many people had to deal with things that were below them. So to me, there's a lot that can be said about that. Besides the music just being very healing music. The music is something that is a universal language, and he obviously knew how to make that language speak across generations, across cultures, all of the different barriers that you could put in the way of that, especially at that time.
What's the song that you can't?
Wow. I like I'm Walking. I'm walking. Yes, indeed, I'm walking. Hey, somebody know it?
Wow, Sheila.
Hey, go ahead on. I like that, because you hear the motion of the song in the lyric, and there's something about that. He's carrying on. I'm going forward. This is what I'm dealing with, but I'm like this way.
You were featured in the New York Times even further back. I don't know if you remember this, the Sunday Routine.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a feature.
When I lived around you.
Yeah, exactly. This is a feature we talked to someone about what they do on Sunday. And you said something interesting. You talked about what you had for breakfast, what you read, but you said there's 2 parts of every Sunday, prayer and music. And so that I found that really interesting. You're praying and you're listening to music. Tell us about that.
You have to go in to go out. I do a lot of this. There's a lot of going out. You have to be generous. In order to be generous, you have to spend time here. And for me, that's what that's all about, putting things back in the machine.
Exactly.
Listening to music that inspires me, gives me ideas, teaches me something, or even exploring things that I don't necessarily feel or that don't resonate with me, and exploring why. Just really letting the music be a teacher, and also really connecting with the source for me of all the inspiration of what I do, which I believe it all comes from a divine source. And if that's where it's coming from, then you have to always reconnect with that, because there's a lot of noise. You know, some people call it meditation or whatever, however they break through the noise to figure out what you really think and what you really feel. Because that's the most important part in your walk. How do you really feel and how do you really think? I feel like we're in an age where we're constantly being bombarded with lifestyles to adopt or opinions to adopt before we can fully process how we actually feel or what we think about something. So for me, I need to have that distance in order to reconnect with that.
Now, I think you said in there that you like to have your music turned up real high. So does that mean whoever lives downstairs or upstairs from you is like pounding on the floor or ceiling? What's that?
Not no more, because I'm on TV. but before, yeah, I lived, when I was in Juilliard, I lived in a place in Washington Heights. This was, I think it was like my last few years, and I got in the piano, and I was playing, and I would get notes and broomstick and all types of stuff. And then one day, this was even before the Late Show, we did a guest spot. It was on one of the late night shows as a musical guest. And all that stopped once they saw that show. It was the same music. But it's funny how that TV is crazy, man. It's like, yeah, play more.
That's great. That's great. You are going to be playing. You can go full volume there. This new album, Hollywood Africans, it's about musicians who have affected, influenced you, your style, inspired you. Tell us a little bit about that.
Fats is one of them.
Yeah, Fats is one of them. Yeah.
But the name came from, I was studying a lot of Jean-Michel Basquiat's work, mainly because I'm in the process of writing a musical for Broadway. We've just been greenlighted by the Basquiat estate to do a musical involving his work and his life. And I'd been studying it for a year prior to even entering the project. And one of his paintings is from the year 1983. It's entitled Hollywood Africans. Yeah. And it's really an indictment of the entertainment industry and the way that there are so many people who innovate, people of color who innovate and change the game, but aren't really, they weren't given their just due. Right. And him seeing himself as a part of that lineage and breaking the chains in his own way. Wow. And for me, it goes back to my belief that it all comes from a divine place, that no matter the amount of oppression or marginalization, you can't bridle this healing, transcendental force of art and music and love to go out into the world. So that's really what I represent. Yeah. And I carry the music and the spirit of all of the ancestors who came before me in the record, in the spirit of love and of healing.
So is struggle part of great music? Sort of, what do you think?
I think life is part of great music, not necessarily struggle. It's more about the true experience of a person. Yeah. You know, like the people in Appalachia, and you hear the fiddle music, you hear the music of drum circles in Africa. Mm-hmm. Or you hear the music, you know, the Ghana drum circles or the rumba sessions down in Cuba. They come from people's experiences. So it's not always a struggle, but it is real.
Yeah, yeah. Why does it seem, you clearly love jazz, that's the music that was born here. Why is it so hard to get young people today to get into jazz? That to me is that hasn't been a problem for me. I think that for jazz in general, there's a lot of different schools of thought in jazz. Mm-hmm. You have a school of thought where the music is this and it can only be this. And then you have a school of thought where the music can be everything. And I don't ascribe to either. But I think that
the tension between those things segments jazz in a way that other styles of music aren't segmented. For instance, when you listen to trap music or hip hop music or country music, there's a sound that's consistent throughout. Whereas with jazz, there's not a consistent sound. So with anything that you're trying to give to people or tell them what it is, when you can't pinpoint what it is, there's a problem, because it's about identification. Now, I think the experience of jazz music live is something that anybody can get into. And there's something that happens live when you see musicians communicating with each other in a way that is spontaneous, but also masterful and of the highest virtuosity. There's nothing like that. But when you get it on a record, trying to capture that it's a very difficult challenge. It's much different to trying to capture a classical piece of music or something else that's more set. So I think that it's really just a matter of identifying what it is, and also the taste. The tastes are not developed for a lot of people because they're not exposed to it. But I think if they are exposed to it, especially in a live context, then that would change it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, as I look out at the audience here, I can actually see the expression on their face. They're essentially saying, Marc, stop with the questions and let the man play. I can see it. And I think we should do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I do want to ask you, there's a lot of problems in the world today, and there's a lot of problems in cities, and you seem very optimistic, though. And can music be part of actually lifting up cities?
Yes, absolutely. In the sense of inspiring people to go out and take action, music has always been the soundtrack of movements. Yeah. And music has always been a way for people to endure hardship and figure out how to really connect to their humanity or really affirm their humanity when everything around them is trying to squash their humanity. And that's one of the things that I love about music that keeps me optimistic, is that in any situation, music can be used as a reprieve and as a balm. Yeah. So that's the one thing that I think music will always be used for, beyond just entertainment.
So how are you going to close out this? How are you going to close out this conference?
I think we're off. Yeah.
Am I still on here? That's the problem.
They cut him off.
Is John still on? I have been cut off. John,
Yes.
John, what song are you going to play for us?
Oh yeah, it's great.
There. John. I really don't need this mic.
No, it's good.
Yeah, so what are you going to play for us?
I'll play something. How about "What a Wonderful World"? That's a good song.
That's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
It's
Great. I see trees of green and red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed days and the dark sacred nights. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, and also are the faces of all the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll know much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. What a wonderful world. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. There it was.
Jon, that was fabulous.